People who witnessed bachelor parties going terribly wrong. What's the story? Bachelor party in Las Vegas. Nobody knew that the groom had a problem with gambling. First night we're there, we're all in the casino having drinks and playing cards. Groom gets up to get a drink and never comes back to the group. After hours of searching for him, we finally find him sitting on the bathroom floor of his hotel room crying his eyes out. He lost over $10,000 in just a few hours playing blackjack. We were there for 3 more days and he pretty much didn't even leave his hotel room and was terrified to go home and tell his fiancée he gambled away most of their savings. Yeah, this is tragic. I was naive enough to not realize my soon-to-be husband had a gambling problem. And I wanted to be cool like someone else said above. I was 22 at the time. Young and stupid. Anywho, I let Las Vegas be our honeymoon destination. Like 2 days after our wedding, our first day in Vegas, he disappears and won't answer my calls. I was alone for an hour or 2 before he finally returned. Sitting by the pool by myself, getting hit on by a stranger. I was so fucking sad. That wasn't the last of his gambling escapades. But it was so tragic to me, a young, hopeful new bride, who had just signed her life away to this man. Gambling addiction sucks ass. We are now divorced and I am very very glad. On the first night of what was supposed to be a crisp fall weekend of camping, cookouts, beer, scotch, and whitewater canoeing, the groom's older brother and future brother-in-law got blackout drunk and started fighting. At first it was just yelling and drunken shit talk, and the rest of us blew it off. They'd never really gotten along and we figured that, as with most drunken disputes between dudes, it would blow over, but instead it escalated until the brother-in-law drew a .45 cal pistol from his backpack, pointed it at the groom's brother's face, demanded the keys to the equipment van, climbed in, locked the van behind him, and immediately passed out, still clutching his gun. At first we were relieved, sure, we were pissed off and in disbelief at what had just happened, but at least the situation was resolved and nobody was hurt. Our relief turned to horror, however, when we realized our sleeping bags, warm clothing, personal belongings, including car keys, and most of the food were still inside the locked van, underneath the groom's drunk, unconscious, armed, idiot future brother-in-law. Nobody was really thinking straight, but we at least agreed we didn't want to break into the van for fear of getting drunkenly shot. We were able to keep the fire going, but what followed was still one very cold, hungry night in the woods. In the morning, we discovered that future BIL had capped off his private festivities by 1. Vomiting in the back of the van, all over our backpacks and sleeping bags, and 2. Leaving the dome light on all night, killing the van's battery. Groom was so angry he simply bailed and went home. The rest of us sat around freezing our asses off in the morning fog while BIL cleaned all our gear. Once he was finished, we jump-started the van, abandoned our plans, and got the fuck out of the woods. I used to bartend at the local college club bar. You know the type, cheap and shitty and loud and dirty, but pretends to be a classy establishment but more concerned about making all the money possible, so lets in really questionable people. Became the go-to bar for the gangbangers from one city over because we would let them in and no one in their hometown would. 1 week after I quit working there, a wedding party was in town for their wedding and out for drinks Friday night before the Saturday wedding. Bar lets in a whole group of the gangsters, including a 20-year-old, U.S., not of drinking age, with his face absolutely covered in tattoos. A fight breaks out when they start hitting on the bride-to-be and the groom's brother intervenes and is stabbed in the neck by the 20-year-old with face tats. He bled out in the bar kitchen while my friends who still worked there desperately tried to stop the bleeding with bar rags. From what I heard, they still had the wedding the next day because everything was paid for, but it was very somber. Friend of mine quit on the spot after the ambulance had taken him away. Edit, I looked it up, it was actually the bride's brother and the wedding was on Sunday, not Saturday, with the brother being officially declared dead on the Saturday. This happened to a family friend back in the 70s to 80s. Back in the day the bachelor party was the night before the wedding. Terrible idea, but that's probably why we've gone away from that. Anyways, night before the wedding the groomsmen decide to kidnap the bride and bring her to a couple local bars. All in good fun. Well, they ended up getting in a terrible car accident. One groomsman died. The bride was in critical condition and nearly died, and the driver was brought to jail for a DUI. I tagged along with my cousin to a bachelor party in rural Nebraska. It was all pretty normal to begin with, on someone's property, big barbecue, barn, drinks, yard games, and then the girls got there. These two meth heads and one of their boyfriends, of course everyone knows everyone there. They throw down this dirty mattress and the two girls just start going at it while everyone stood around and watched. It was the most repulsive, least erotic thing I've ever seen. Group of guys bring bachelor to Nashville for top golf and bar hopping, bad mix of two friend groups. One guy says it's a sausage fest and boring, even though considering both friend groups not liking each other everyone was having a good time. Bachelor was dumb and said to invite a bunch of women and ended up cheating on his fiancée and then told her the day after the wedding and now they are divorced. Not a bachelor's party, but advice for not trying stupid wedding stunts. Both are from biker groups. On the day of one wedding, bride and groom were both late 30s, all these older bikers who had been drinking decided to do a big drive to the church, which of course turned into a bit of a race. The best man comes off his bike and went straight into a wall and died 10 minutes from the church. I knew a few of them, so this story went around the area. When I was in school years earlier I remember hearing about another wedding in the next county with more bikers, some of the same group, decided they wanted to have the bride arrive to the wedding on a custom trike. Her dress got caught somehow and she was almost disemboweled and died at the side of the road. We got together for my friend's bachelor party. We all hated his wife-to-be, but he said he was happy and we'd made it clear she wasn't good for him, but we still loved him. Evening of the bachelor party and we're chilling at our friend's house. Sitting around joking, freestyling, just being dumb. We literally had nothing planned other than drinking and hanging out. Suddenly there was a huge bang on the door. My friend thought we got strippers and was pissed. My other friend who organized it said he didn't know who it was. We open the door and it's his fucking wife-to-be with her friends. She was sure we had girls there and strippers. Most of us were watching TV. We got really pissed off at her and kicked her the fuck out, and she spent the rest of the night texting him and he chilled over in a corner while we watched TV. Not mine, but a friend of mine was invited to a bachelor party where they had planned to rent an RV and drive from Minnesota to the Kentucky Derby. They rent the RV and get on their way. Near the border or Iowa they pull over to get some food and use the restroom. One of the guys goes to find something in one of the bags and opens the lower storage compartment only to see a blackened foot sticking out and a horrible stench. They immediately realize it was a dead body and call the police. The entire crew spent the whole time being questioned by the police. Turns out the body was that of a young man who had been drugged up and possibly mugged one night in the middle of winter. He found this RV and decided to get in the storage compartment in an attempt to get warm. He passed away and was missing for months. I believe it was in the paper and all over the news at the time. I stupidly offered to host a bachelor party of a friend at my house. 2 strippers were hired, best man became grabby with them and was acting like a drunk douche. I told him to stop and he slapped me, so we started to brawl. 90% of the people there knew him and didn't know me, so when the brawl broke out, everyone was defending him, you know, because that's my bro. I ended getting kicked out of my own house violently, and they locked the door behind me. I went in through the basement and shut off the breaker, then screamed for everyone to get out. Took about 2 hours and the cops showing up to get everyone to leave. I didn't go to the wedding. Years ago I went to a bachelor party for a work colleague that I don't actually know that well, but he is a nice guy, and his best man, who I only met a time or two at the bars, that invited me, said he didn't have a lot of friends to come and I wasn't doing anything that night, so what the hell, I'll come. I am American, but this was overseas in a place full of expats, so we're all different nationalities. Drunken best man, English, picks a bar fight with a bunch of Irish guys that were in town on vacation or something. I nope out as soon as it starts because I A am a huge pussy and B don't want to end up in the local jail. Anyway, the best I can piece together from what I heard is that a young male bar employee tried to get between them to break up the fight and got mildly beat up, but had some undiagnosed clotting disorder and ended up dying. Witnesses were inconsistent with reports of who actually hit the poor guy. Cops got there pretty fast. This place is maybe 1,000 feet away from a police station, so everyone on both sides of the fight went to jail. I was in no way involved and haven't been in a fight since I was a teenager, but I was a regular in that bar and didn't want someone to misremember that I was involved, so I returned to the US as soon as I found out the guy died. I'm no longer in contact with anyone in that country, but last I heard was a year after the event and all those guys were still in jail. A few years ago I was stationed near Vegas, so naturally on long weekends we'd frequent. Well, this bridal party came up to the group of guys that I was there with, and after a couple drinks and walking Fremont they wanted to go to the hotel. The soon-to-be bride wanted a farewell with friend B from my group. Well, the number 2 girl was not having it. Started small but escalated to full-blown screaming in the casino about how you're not going to do that to my brother. I don't know if she got married, but I know that we got the hell out of Dodge. Edit, spelling. We did a cabin in a local park and everything went great the first night and got super drunk. I set up a round of golf for a few of the guys including the groom. It had been raining for a few days and let up perfectly for the round. We got out there and the course was super hilly and we were all too hungover from the night before to even drink on the course. We're coming down a hill into like number 7 and I heard a loud bang behind me. I turned around and the groom's cart had flipped and landed on his ankle. Snapped his fibula. He had like 2 to 3 surgeries and it got seriously infected. Luckily he's fine now, but he was on a scooter for the wedding and did his first dance on a peg leg. Bachelor party at a lake house. The house was right on the lake and had a dock that went right into the water. We were all drinking, having fun, and running around being stupid. We decided we'd jump into the lake. The groom's brother ended up slipping on the dock and fell headfirst into the railing on the side. Knocked him out and we all hurried up and ran to him. He had a gash on his forehead. Put him in the car and rushed him to the ER where he ended up getting stitches. At the end he was mad that the party ended early because he didn't get to see the strippers. I took a buddy out to the bar that a separate friend group haunts. His plan was to have a few beers at his place, but seemed excited to go out instead. He proceeded to get blasted and hit on every girl in sight. I told him to calm the fuck down twice. He then groped a girl while I was in the bathroom and quickly left before he got his ass beat. I apologized profusely to everyone for bringing him around. He was normally a level-headed guy, but he just went off the deep end that night. The wedding the next day was awkward as hell. I was a groomsman and we dipped out early from the reception. Never talked to him again. His wife left him a year later. During a wedding in Belgium it's also common that friends play a trick on the house of the newlyweds, like fill the house full of balloons or something. Short summary, a good friend of the groom removed a cover covering a hole that led to the basement window near the front door of the house. At night they came home from the wedding party, and neither groom nor bride expected this. The bride stumbled into the hole and broke her neck, after which she died. Hard to forgive such an incident and lifelong scar. Went on a bachelor party trip to Floribama, Think hillbillies and rednecks had a kid, and this is that kid's town, and we met up with another bachelor party that was there. Hung out, shared beers, music, etc. Pretty cool guys for being a bit younger than most of us, except that some of them brought their girlfriends. Okay, whatever. For macho testosterone-filled reasons, our group kept discussing which group would win a fight, and who should fight who, etc. Never thinking it would happen. The last night everyone was hanging at the redneck bar, and their groom was at the bar making out with two of his buddies' girlfriends. The buddies were the last to notice, so everyone was filming it and cuckolding the two guys. Screaming match ensues, their party turns into two sides yelling at the other, fight breaks out, bouncers let it ride. Since it was 10 guys, the groom got his face bashed in, like no way he could get married in a week, 3 other guys and 1 girl in ambulances. She had her elbow snapped backwards with an audible crunch, and it stayed that way for a long time. One dude ended up in only his underwear with his cowboy boots on his hands like boxing gloves, causing a lot of damage to people's faces, friendships ruined, people arrested. My wife went to a bachelorette party and wedding, that I couldn't make, where one of the other bridesmaids had just broken up with her boyfriend, who was a groomsman. To prevent drama, the bride and groom asked my wife to walk with the ex-boyfriend, as he had no interest in walking with his ex-girlfriend. The ex-girlfriend proceeds to go on a bender through the bachelorette party and wedding/after party for 2 days, messaging me on social media and texting me, no idea how she got my number, about how my wife is a whore and cheating on me with her ex and that we should hook up out of revenge, etc. I had been getting a play-by-play from my wife, and the bride, and the groom, so I just gave her snarky answers that pissed her off more. Never heard from her again after she sobered up, but we all still get a laugh about it to this day. Cabin was rented in a state park the night before the wedding. Bride-to-be was also there with a few friends. We were a very close-knit group. Drank, smoked, the usual. Later in the evening, the groom-to-be, GTB, was casually stabbing his pocket knife in the picnic table we were all sitting around. His future wife tells him to stop, that he's going to cut his finger off. He says the blade is locked, nothing will happen. Of course, on the very next stab, what happens? The blade releases, folds, and cuts his pinky off. Pinky recovered and put on ice. GTB is rushed to ER. Miraculously, he doesn't bleed out, but at the altar the next day, we have to hold him up due to pain meds. That very afternoon, he goes into surgery and has pinky reattached. Ends up being a military pilot until he passed away a few years ago. Not dead hooker wrong, but we got together at the house of one of the groomsmen to pregame, and not long into it, the homeowner and the groom decided they should take off to go pray. Not a euphemism, they were staunch Catholics and felt like going to a church. The rest of us hung out at the house and drank and played rock paper scissors D&D since we had no dice. I think we stayed around hoping that we would actually go party somewhere once the other two came back. Not the best night, but we made do. My bachelor party was in Vegas. Had like 20 friends from different groups, work, college, hometown, come. We were there for 4 nights. First night a bunch of us head to the strip club. Me and my best man go back to the hotel at like 1 or 2 a.m. I grab a quick bite then head to bed. I wake up hungover at like 8 a.m. I go down to the casino to find a cup of coffee. Friend 1 sees me and goes, "Dude, you have to see this." Friend 2 is annihilated drunk at a blackjack table. He's sitting at a corner seat and has over $3,000 of chips of all denominations in front of him. They aren't stacked nicely, they are in a massive pile taking up like 1/4 of the table. I walk up and he grabs like $150 and puts it up to bet. He gets a 17, and hits. One other guy is playing at the table, and says to my friend, "What are you doing?" Well, he gets a 3 and wins with 20. Friend 2 just looks at the other guy at the table and says, "Fuck you douchebag." Guy gets up and walks off.